The Official Handbook of the Marvel Universe, Volume 1, Issue 14, Book of the Dead and Inactive, From Marvel Boy to Zurus. Marvel Boy, deceased. Real name, Robert Grayson. Occupation, adventurer. Identity, not known to the general public. Legal status, adopted citizen of the Uranus colony. Other aliases, the Crusader. Place of birth, Trenton, New Jersey. Place of death, New York City. Known relatives, Horace Grayson, father deceased. Group affiliation, Special Operative of the U.S. Government. First modern appearance, Fantastic Four number 164. Final appearance, Fantastic Four number 165. History. Robert Grayson was the son of rocket scientist Horace Grayson, formerly Horace Grabscheid, a German Jew who immigrated to America when Hitler began his rise to power in Germany. Fearing Nazi reprisal for losing a renowned scientist like him, Grayson began work in America on a private spacecraft to take himself and his infant son into space. Originally planning to orbit the moon until such time as he deemed it safe to return to Earth, Grayson instead made radio contact with a colony of Eternals, an evolutionarily advanced offshoot of humanity who lived on the planet Uranus. See Eternals. The Uranian Eternals had left Earth thousands of years before and were curious about the current state of technology and culture on their world of origin. Thus, they encouraged Dr. Grayson to lock onto the signal beam they were broadcasting and come to Uranus. Eventually arriving on Uranus, Dr. Grayson and his son were met with open arms by the small band of Eternals. The Uranus colony was entirely contained within a small 5-mile diameter environment-controlled dome. In order to withstand the greater gravity of Uranus, Dr. Grayson and his son were given special gravity-resisting bracelets. Dr. Grayson was enamored of the tiny, peaceful scientific community and decided to make the place his permanent home. The Eternals listened with rapt attention to his long discourses about life on Earth. Young Robert Grayson was raised as a young Eternal, receiving a scientific education far beyond what he could learn on Earth. Still, Bob Grayson was always curious about the world of his birth, and finally, at the age of 17, he convinced his father to let him go there. Before his departure, young Grayson was shown how to regulate his energy bracelets to absorb and reflect light to use as a weapon if he so required it. Bob Grayson traveled to Earth aboard his father's spacecraft, refurbished by Uranian technology, and made it back in a fraction of the time the Earth-Uranus voyage took. On Earth, Grayson decided to use his almost superhuman skills and knowledge to battle crime in order to spread the Uranian way of peace. Dubbed Marvel Boy by the press, Grayson waged his personal crusade for 3 years before receiving an urgent summons from his father to return to Uranus. Led to believe there was some medical crisis, Marvel Boy tried to acquire a wide variety of medical supplies to take back with him. The process of getting a bank loan to acquire these supplies took weeks. When he finally arrived on Uranus, he found he was too late. Some unseen force had burst the life-sustaining dome around the colony, causing all its inhabitants to die from exposure to Uranus's harsh environmental conditions. Grief-stricken, he believed that he might have been able to save the colony if he had not been delayed by a certain banker on Earth. He decided to return to Earth and avenge his people by dealing with the one he held responsible for his delay. However, en route to Earth, Marvel Boy's ship crossed the path of the comet Kohutek, and inexplicably, the comet's radiations caused him to go into suspended animation, aging into adulthood at a very slow rate. When Marvel Boy emerged from the comet's tail about 2 decades later, his grief had turned to insanity. Crash landing on Earth, Marvel Boy undertook a campaign of terror under the name Crusader, murdering the banker who delayed his trip back to Uranus and trying to destroy the banker's business. His rampage was opposed by the Fantastic Four. Recklessly playing with the control gems of his wristbands to augment his power, he accidentally caused them to absorb too much solar energy. In a blinding flash, Robert Grayson disintegrated himself, leaving nothing but his energy bracelets. The energy bands were taken into custody by Reed Richards, who later passed them along to Stark International, where Stark worker Dr. Gilbert Vaughn gave them to his son Wendell to test. Wendell Vaughn currently wears the wristbands, as well as a version of Marvel Boy's costume, and is known as Quasar. See Quasar. Height, as adult, 5 feet 10 inches. Weight, as adult, 170 pounds. Eyes, blue. Hair, blonde. Powers. Marvel Boy possessed no superhuman powers, but was a gifted natural athlete with a near-genius level IQ. Paraphernalia. Marvel Boy's energy bracelets, believed to be ancient artifacts of the alien Kree, whose supply depot was the site of the Eternals' Uranus colony, were modified by the Eternals to permit their wearer control over gravity and at least some of the electromagnetic spectrum. On Uranus, the bracelets served to allow Marvel Boy and his father, who wore an identical pair, to resist Uranus's greater gravity and to absorb and regulate the feeble rays of the sun. On Earth, the wristband's gravity control enabled Marvel Boy to fly, and its solar absorption enabled him to emit blinding flashes of light. Marvel Boy wore specially polarized contact lenses to protect his eyes from the glare. When he had become the Crusader, he was also able to use the wristbands to emit bolts of concussive force. When Quasar assumed custody of the wristbands, he and his scientist father discovered more sophisticated uses for the alien devices.